I'm noticing more and more colleagues across industries complaining about Anthropic's Opus. They lament having to tap Fable too much. I've heard some success in real world work using Fable to think and Sonnet 5 to execute. Still, something is wrong with Opus, and I think I've figured out what it is. I'm Matt McDougall. I've been building for the web since the 90s. I focus on e commerce, AI, and security. I have always been passionate about open source, and even more so today with how much we are able to do with open source and the available AI coding tools. As a little aside, if Opus is dragging you down and you don't already have a model agnostic harness, whether you're a coder or a business user, now is a great time to build that out. With a model agnostic harness, you can keep your preferences, memories, rules, tools all on their own, detached from a specific company or model. You come up with some personal evaluations that help you define what success means to you, and then run those evaluations on a monthly basis to see which of the various models is working out best. I think many of us fell in love with Claude Code. I was one, uh, because Anthropic, their models performed so well for so long. Looking at this historical Sweetbench performance benchmark, you can see how Opus dominated, or how Anthropic dominated for so long. And then recently, when Sol 5.6 came out, now they're neck and neck. And yet, at least in my testing, Sol 5.6 is performing so much better, and Opus is producing garbage. I've heard from two separate people in the last day who've gotten Opus 5 to admit that it only read part of their instructions. One specifically got it to admit that the prompt entered was too long and it felt that it was too expensive to read it. So it only read the first little bit and then just made up the rest from there. Yikes. So I've been using mostly Codex for coding in the past couple months. I switched because I was seeing consistently better results with 5.6 Sol than I was over Opus. More testing needs to be done, but I have a strong feeling Opus thinks the smart path is to think for us and not follow instructions. This degradation hypothesis tracks with the launch of Fable. Now remember, Anthropic sees everything everyone has been putting into Fable. There is no opt out of Anthropic seeing all your interactions with Fable for security reasons. At launch, Fable was so much more powerful than anything else publicly available. I bet more people relied on it to figure things out and more blindly accepted the output. Anthropic doesn't own a repository of fresh, real time training data like how Grok can rely on X, for example. What Anthropic does have are the users who have opted in to training, and then all Fable users. Have the Fable YOLO users led Anthropic to assume we're stupid by default and probably it's best to ignore our instructions? I think that might be what's going on. The classic if eval instruction following benchmark isn't used very often these days to test today's frontier models, which, at least for a while, were producing consistently high scores. Clearly, though, something's going on with Anthropic's instruction following capabilities. I've run across this new advanced instruction following benchmark called Complex Constraints from Surge AI. It's described as a benchmark for professional instruction following where constraints depend on each other, fire conditionally, and must be inferred from context. This benchmark explains why I'm liking Sol 5.6 over Opus. From that benchmark and others, the open weight model Quen 3.8 Max is worth investigation. It's got very strong multimodal instruction following agentic coding and reasoning scores. And the value of Quen 3.8 Max, it's very attractive. At $2 US for input, 25 cents for cached, and $6 for output. Compare that with Opus 5 at $5 for input, 50 cents cached, and $25 for output. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the complex constraints benchmark ongoing. I think this may be a key to keeping track of which models will perform well in my real-world scenarios. What are your experiences with Opus? What do you think about this complex constraints benchmark? Drop a comment below. If you or your company is interested in figuring out which LLMs are best for your specific use cases and want to build a system to evaluate and adapt as new opportunities arise, please get in touch.